The word narcissist is probably one of the most overused terms used to classify everybody else, right? It's always somebody else is the narcissist, but God forbid it be us. Now, I believe that though it is overused in regular daily life, it is not used enough when it comes to classifying these whacked out, quote unquote, progressives, these liberals, these neo-Marxists, whatever the hell you want to label them. These people, majoritively, are psychopathic and narcissistic in nature. And according to research, bipartisan, non-political research, this actually happens to be true, which is wild because I made these assertions coming from a background of psychology. I would oftentimes, be looking into myself as well as the world around me to understand human beings. And when I would have these classifications, I would, look to see where I could actually sort of create these categories. Okay, is that actually narcissism? Is this just somebody, who feels inadequate, who feels a certain sense of shame? Or is this somebody who has a shame-based disorder like narcissism? Then when I started looking into the quote unquote politics of things, who are the types of people who fall into liberalism? This idea that I can destroy everything around me for the sake of my own identity. Who falls into something like that? I will destroy everything, including my own newborn, in order to stand for this quasi cause. That sounds like a cult ideology. And even deeper than that, as we're about to get into in this article, it is full-blown narcissism. Now, this article reads, left-wing extremists, let me make this a little big for you. Left-wing extremists linked to psychopathy, which is psychopaths, and narcissism. And this is from 2023. What we have seen now, as far as the violence that's taking place in these streets, I mean, as recent as 3 days ago, they just caught 10 of these Antifa liberals who, well, I guess all of Antifa is a far left movement, who are looking to take the lives of ICE agents on the streets. Pew, pew. One of them hit in the neck. Hopefully the man lives, but we will see where this goes. These are the same people who blew up Teslas after trying to force the rest of us into buying Teslas. But let us get into this because I feel it matters. It matters for us to at least understand what we're dealing with. Psychology and overall psychopathy. Left-wing extremism is linked to toxic psychopathic tendencies and narcissism. Also, water is wet, the sky is blue, grass is green, and so are you. According to a new study published to the peer-reviewed journal Current Psychology, based on existing research, we expected individuals with high levels of left-wing authoritarianism to also report higher levels of narcissism. So I do want to break this down because I feel it matters for this overall understanding. Left-wing ideology is simply the newest expression of, as they said, this totalitarian control mechanism, right? It's existed throughout the history of the world. There's always been regimes, movements, whether it was monarchies, dictatorships, whatever it is, that have looked to usurp personal freedoms. That's why communism and socialism is so attractive to these people. It is a controlling mechanism. And when you are narcissistic, you look to control the world around you, i.e. the people around you, in order to make yourself feel whole. It is a shame-based disorder. Most people think narcissism is when you just, you feel grandiose and you feel better than everybody else. It's supremacy. In reality, it is actually an inferiority complex that manifests itself as this superiority. When somebody shows up with arrogance, if you have a little bit of discernment, you can almost tell on the surface even that this person is deeply insecure, right? They tear others down. They try to build themselves up. That is a byproduct of insecurity. So again, we just think of it sometimes, all these weird, whacked out, liberals, whatever. No, these are people who want to see you and I controlled. They want to control us, and they will do anything in order for that to happen. Now, again, there are those who are not narcissistic and not psychopathic, or at least just have some of the tendencies of this. But The ones that we see and we hear about, and the ones who are in charge of the systems, God forbid, the Gavin Newscams of the world, etc., the Ihan Omars of the world, these are, I would dare to say, clinically undiagnosed psychopaths. Let me see. Okay. As a result of the new study, authors Chris Spence and Alex Bertrams have coined a new term for such psychological behavior: the dark ego vehicle principle. That's new. All right. Don't mind me. I'm going to take a quick screenshot of that for later. Get into that. According to this principle, individuals with dark personalities, such as high narcissism and psychopathic traits, are attracted to certain forms of political and social activism. Let me read that one more time. According to this principle, individuals with dark personalities, such as high narcissism and psychopathic traits, are attracted to certain forms of political and social activism. Karl Marx is famously quoted as saying, "Accuse your enemy of doing the thing that you're doing in order to create confusion." That is called projection. That is a tool oftentimes used by the narcissistic individual or the psychopathic manipulative individual. We see this on a daily basis with the so-called progressives, the so-called Democrats, or those who have usurped the platform of democracy and are pushing their whacked out ideologies. It's not about the activism. It's about controlling you and using something as a means of making themselves feel superior to you. This continues to read that political and social activism, what they use as a vehicle to here we go, as a vehicle to satisfy their own ego-focused needs instead of, I can't make this up, folks, of actually aiming at social justice and equality. It has never been about equality. Here we go. Some of our whacked out buddies over here. Yep, that looks like social activism, not complete psychopathy, utter destruction and chaos. In particular, certain forms of activism might provide them with opportunities for positive self-presentation and displays of moral superiority to gain social status, to dominate others, and to engage in social conflicts and aggression to satisfy their need for thrill seeking. They show up to the protest and they break into the buildings. They burn the damn buildings. They burn the cars, throw rocks at the cars because they want to express that level of aggression. Psychopaths have an incessant need for thrill, for excitement, for that cortisol and adrenaline rush. If you know, you know. If you've watched like a show like you know these people are, it's more than just unhinged. There's a certain deviousness and maliciousness. Like that's why they call it the Machiavellian sort of traits. There's a deep manipulative aspect of what they're doing, more specifically towards the psychopath. Social justice is often used as a guise for these activists to behave. I can't make this up. I have not read this ahead of time. Unhinged. The research noted. An individual high in LWA might declare anyone to be old-fashioned who is opposed to their own progressive values, quote unquote, strive to suppress free speech, to regulate the expression of right-wing beliefs in educational institutions, and even endorse the use of violence to reach their own political goals, the author states or says. Beyond using any means necessary, people of privileged backgrounds who are aligned with LWA often use their narcissism to make activism solely about themselves instead of achieving social equality for struggling groups. Minority groups should be made aware of the narcissistic enemies from within their activist groups. I have said this time and time again. These so-called white liberals who are the most extreme about their allyship to black people, to queer people, to, the natives of this land. They are oftentimes the ones who are using you. They are the most manipulative. You are a pawn, a tool in their game. This has been a game that has been run since 1965, when that old psychopathic, narcissistic individual known as Lyndon Baines Johnson, who just so happened to become president after somehow JFK had his life taken from him. Somehow. Then all of a sudden, here comes Mr. LBJ putting on the sheep's mask and pretending to be for the black plight when days prior he was against, have fought against, had essentially campaigned in opposition of segregation. All of a sudden, he's forced to write that piece of legislation because of a majority House and Senate that were Republican, or a majority Republican House, majority Republican Senate. Pushed that bill through, forcing the president to sign it into law. Yet here we are with the very same wolf in sheep's clothing. Let us continue. Minority groups should be made aware of the narcissistic enemy from within their activist movement, as these individuals could hijack the cause, thereby reducing the success of the activism in many ways, the author adds. As I'm telling y'all, this is not a right-wing blah, blah, blah. No. This is in-house. They're like, hey, beware, because, some of these people who are supposed to be our allies might not be. Surprise, surprise. As grandiose narcissists typically desire fame, distinction, elevated social status, and high social importance, they can be assured to strive for influential positions that involve social visibility and outreach, as well as access to financial and other resources. Gavin Newscam. The authors also made it clear that authoritarianism exists on both sides of the political spectrum, and that there is a wide range of literature and research in the field of right-wing authoritarianism. However, research on authoritarianism observed in individuals who are supportive of left-wing political ideologies are still rare. That's sometimes they still try to cover up for it. And again, this isn't me saying, yeah, it does not exist on this side. No, it is more prevalent in left-wing ideology. It is more prevalent because it's easier to hijack something that seems on the surface to be about people. Oh, it's about taking care of the poor. Oh, the homeless in California. Give us $34 billion and we'll solve homelessness. Homelessness gets worse. Oh, those poor people. Purchases another $10 million mansion. Gavin Newscam. Yeah, I have a personal gripe with that guy. I am technically a Cali boy, born in Zimbabwe, but, California will always have my heart. As whacked out a place as it can be, that's why I was raised. And I got to see it firsthand. I got to see this level of insanity and those, of course, there's other forms of mental illness and things of that nature that manifest. They say 54% of liberal women are classified as, or white liberal women specifically, are classified as mentally ill. According to these very same studies, or not the same necessary study per se, or the same researchers, but the same body, the same governing body over this sort of politically driven psychology-driven information. White liberal women are mentally ill, and water is wet, the sky is blue, grass is green, and so are you. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Now, if you'd like to stay around, make sure to click that little subscribe button down there, or you can show some love by going to the description below and clicking on the button titled Buy Me a Coffee. Leave a little something there, or click on the Cash App. Leave a little something here. Till the next time, peace.
I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night. I can see the light again. I can see the light. You can see the life in him illuminate the night. I know the time is taking. A 3, 6, 5, that's a full rotation. I see you looking up, you know them constellations. Constantly gazing like house of praises, you get to praising.